Welcome to the Coach Toolbox. I'm your host, Dr. Ajay Nangalia, a leadership coach and counselor. This channel supports your professional and personal development as a leader with research-based and practice-focused learning. And we bring you the best career and life advice from guests who've been there and done that successfully. And now, our session today.
Hi, today let's talk about how we can support our direct reports, team members, and other stakeholders, how we can coach them through some of the faulty thinking that they tend to get into time to time or all the time. So as leaders or managers or coaches, many times we work with team members or other stakeholders who are dealing with a difficult situation or some difficult transition or an emotional turmoil. And during this time, their thinking tends to go haywire. This faulty thinking can be a passing phase or it can tend to stick around for quite some time. Now, you as an outside person, as the leader or as a coach, can clearly see that the thinking is faulty. But for the person who is thinking this way and more importantly, feeling this way, it's real. So as leaders and coaches, we must first learn to recognize these faulty thinking patterns and then call them out for what they are, and then have a process to gently, or at times not so gently, nudge our stakeholder or direct report or team member out of this faulty thinking. The technical term for this faulty thinking is cognitive distortion. So in our conversation today, let's understand some of the commonly used faulty thinking patterns that can cause our team members distress. And then I'll suggest some questions that you can weave into a conversation with them to help them relook at the situation in a more expansive way, in a way that is helpful rather than one which just pushes them into a corner. So let's start with some common faulty thinking patterns. And as I share these examples, keep in mind how you or some of your existing team members or stakeholders might be thinking like this. So have you ever heard your stakeholder or perhaps even yourself make such statements? I'll never be able to lose weight. I won't get my promotion in this company. This domain is a dead end. I'll never be able to get a break in this company. This type of thinking is called overgeneralizing. It's seeing one single event as a never-ending pattern of defeat or disappointment. Another type of faulty thinking is the all or nothing thinking or black or white thinking. And some examples of this thinking are, you must have an MBA or you cannot get ahead in your career. If my boss respects me, then she must accept my ideas. I want 100% honesty and transparency. So these are examples of all or nothing thinking or black and white thinking, where somebody takes a stand that it must be this way or it must be that way. Next type of faulty thinking is blaming yourself or taking responsibility for something that was not completely your fault, or conversely, blaming other people for something that was your fault. And this is called personalization and blame. And some examples are, oh, if I had been careful, this would not have happened. I should have seen this coming and been prepared. My company, my boss, my team member, my colleague, you can fill in the appropriate, is making my life miserable and is the cause of all my stress and unhealthy eating. Or finally, I'm fat because of my parents' genes. Here's another type of faulty thinking. It's called labeling. In labeling, we assign labels to ourselves or to other people. My boss is such a loser. My teammate is such a loser. Or I'm a disorganized person, so you don't expect me to get organized. Or I'm not from a business family, so I can't even think of starting on my own. Or men or women, you can fill in the blank. Men or women or anything that you fill in the blank just can't be trusted. So this is called labeling. And then we move on to magnification, which is either catastrophizing or minimizing. So in this, what happens is we either blow things out of proportion or inappropriately shrink something to make it seem very less important. I missed my presentation. My career here is over. Yes, I did win the award, but it's no big deal. I was lucky this time. So these are examples of magnification. Then finally, or as we come to the end of the list, we have mind reading. Mind reading is imagining we know what others are thinking without any evidence or support of such presumptions. I'm sure she doesn't like me. He's out to get me. My team are sabotaging my best efforts. And then finally, we come to fortune telling, where we tend to predict the future and assume it will turn out badly. I'll mess up the presentation. I'll never get such a prestigious contract. Even if I go to the party, I'll never meet anyone I like. Things always go wrong for me. My relationships never work out. So these are examples of thought patterns that we can fall into, that our people around us can fall into, and they can fall into these patterns because either they are emotionally genetically programmed and have sort of come up to have this mindset, or they go through certain phases or triggers or incidents in life which just snap them into this pattern of thinking. And it's not just thinking, but along with the thinking, they are going through an emotional phase. So it's a combination, right? And these faulty distortions, they sort of summarize what the person is not only thinking, but also what the person is feeling. So they are shorthands to help us understand. So now that we've identified some of these thought patterns, let's talk about some ways to support our stakeholders. Number one, the first thing to remember is that if the person is emotionally upset as he's talking or she's talking, and you hear these faulty thinking patterns, if the person is emotionally upset or experiencing strong emotional turbulence, then it's best to wait before we try and address the thinking. So it's best to wait. First, help them calm their emotional angst by reflecting back to them the emotions that they are experiencing and accept what they are feeling without judgment or solution. It's more helpful to be a silent support who is there rather than keep mouthing platitudes such as, oh, it's okay, oh, things will work out, oh, things will get better, oh, that's not true, or any such phrases which don't mean much, especially when the person is still feeling emotionally turbulent and is not in a receptive mind. So don't underestimate the power of just holding space for your stakeholders as they experience these emotions and as they talk and verbalize this faulty thinking patterns that's locking them into perhaps maladaptive behavior. And it's challenging for the leader because during this time you will be hearing all the faulty thoughts that are racing through their heart, and you know that so much of it is just not true. But trying to dissuade them or persuade them otherwise while they are still emotional is not helpful. So it's best to be patient and supportive. And then once the emotional phase is over and the person is willing to engage a bit more from their rational self, then the time may be right to engage in a conversation gently using the questions below. And I'm going to share some amazing questions for you. You will need to select which ones are appropriate to shake the faulty thinking. Remember, it's an iterative process and you'll need to repeat this pattern. You'll need to repeat this conversation. You will need to keep on nudging them till the pattern is dislodged. And at the same time, you'll need to be supportive for the person through their emotional healing. So it's a two-pronged approach. You're supporting them through what they're feeling, but you're also gently helping them correct their faulty thinking. So here are some questions that might be helpful. Number one, what is the evidence for or against this thought? Number two, what is the worst that could realistically happen? How bad would that be? Number three, is it really true that you must, should, or you must ought, or you have to? Number four, are there any possible responses besides blaming yourself? Number five, is there any conceivable way for you to look at this situation positively? Number six, is thinking this way helping the situation or yourself or others, or making it only worse? And number 7, how have you effectively managed or tolerated such situations in the past? So this is not a laundry list, and I'm not saying that you go through these questions one by one in sequence like a police inquiry. I'm saying use these type of questions to help them for you to engage in the conversation so that they themselves start figuring things for themselves. These are coaching questions. And if you'd really like to understand and master this material, then I guide you to the work of David Burns and his book, Feeling Good. And that distills cognitive behavior therapy in an amazingly easy to understand and easy to apply way. However, there is an important caveat that we must be aware of. Some folks struggle with deep-rooted issues and really may benefit from work with a counselor or a therapist, in which case I encourage you not to do this yourself, but to guide them towards somebody who can help them long-term. So as we close, I'd like to thank you for joining me in our conversation today, and I trust you've had some new insights and strategies that can support your work as a leader. I look forward to meeting you in our next conversation. Good luck.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please connect with us on coachtoolbox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and review this channel. Details of our ICF-approved coach training programs and our services as executive coaches and coaching supervisors are on www.globalcoachtrust.org. See you in our next session.